3 years in a row where I said, if things don't get better by the end of this year, I need to do something else, because it's working too hard, not making enough money, and it's all too difficult. So if it doesn't improve, then I'm going to get rid of the business. It improved very, very little. And then the next year I'd say, okay, if it doesn't improve again. So I spent 3 years of that conversation with my wife. I recognised that it was just too hard to be all things to everyone. And so I decided that to simplify, we needed just to focus on one area of advice. It was scary. I'd never really turned people away before, but I think something needed to change for us.
Welcome to Getting to the Heart of Business, brought to you by The Online Co, where we believe the best way to help small and medium businesses grow is by putting people first. I'm James Parnwell, and today you'll hear from Phil Thompson, a guy who started his career as a circus performer and now owns a company called Skye Wealth, specialising in income protection and life insurance. You'll hear why he made such a radical career change and how a few brave and clever decisions in his business have made it into a very successful enterprise. My co-host is Jess Caluso. G'day, Jess.
Hey, James.
So when the internet started, people started selling things pretty quickly. eBay was pretty early to the game, but people were cautious.
They were, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't want to spend money because you hadn't seen the person selling it and you hadn't seen the product.
That's it. It was so different. We just weren't used to purchasing in that way, were we?
A different way of purchasing. But then over the years, we've gotten used to the idea.
We certainly have. I certainly have. I'll buy anything online.
So what's something crazy or unusual you've purchased online?
I think the craziest thing I bought online was technically my first car, which is a 1967 Mini, which my dad and my younger brother and I purchased off eBay. We had a few grainy pictures to look at. I think there's about 8 pictures.
Okay. And did you talk to the person that was selling it?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I think it was back in the days where you just did the eBay auction and you had to keep refreshing and clicking and adding your dollar bid or whatever. And we won. So we had to go pick up this car from Nowra and we still have it.
Hypothetically, it might not have existed.
Correct.
Although the person probably had a few purchases in what is it, the STARS system they had?
I think so. Look, at that point in time, I was about 16 years old. So my dad was vetting the seller. He's a pretty seasoned eBay purchaser. Even back then, I think he'd been buying on eBay for a little while. So it's fair to say that he would have done some research into the seller. But yeah, for me as a 16-year-old, which is going back a while now, it was a bit, wow, okay, we're buying a car.
Your first car?
Yeah, first online.
Well, Phil Thompson's company Skye Wealth deals in life insurance. In our interview, he shares how they found their groove and was able to take things online. When they decided to stop being all things to all people and instead got laser focused about what their product was, what market they were selling it to, and how they would deliver it. It's a great lesson in the power of targeted marketing and finding your niche. Welcome to the podcast, Phil.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into your business journey, you have an unusual background for a financial planner.
Yeah.
What was that you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, professional acrobat turned professional services. It's the age-old story.
So I believe there's about 20,000 financial planners in Australia.
Yeah.
There would be a total of one of them that has like a circus arts background?
Almost certainly, yeah.
That's an unusual mixture.
Yeah,
how'd you get into that?
I did it in high school. I was interested in drama, interested in sport, and then a local community circus came and just pitched to our drama class and said, look, if you're athletic and you like drama, why don't you come and try it out? So did it, fell in love and did it for the next kind of 6-7 years.
Right. Yeah, wonderful. Very unusual. So then you've switched over to financial planning. What was the call there?
Yeah, so I realised that circus arts is difficult. You're using your body. There's only kind of so much time that you can be in the business, and you're only as good as your last kind of gig that you do. So it's a really difficult kind of business to build because it's all reliant on your body. As soon as that breaks, you're done. So I wanted something more long-term, more stable. So I decided I liked accounting and I liked money and numbers. And then I asked my biggest sister, Kirsty, previous guest, what I should do, because she had done both. And she said, do not do accounting. Don't sit in front of a computer all day, every day. It's boring. It's not the type of work that you want to be doing. So I moved into financial planning.
Okay. So Kirsty was our guest on episode number 4. She had an accounting background and switched out to something quite different.
Yeah, completely different as well. Yeah, we both did U-turns.
Now, you got a job, and a couple of years in, the owners of the business you were working for decided to sell.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So then you saw an opportunity, but you were young at the time.
Yeah, well, you definitely wasn't ready. Looking back, if someone told me, if someone asked me, should they have done it? I'd say it's dumb, but why not? Give it a go. But yeah, I was 24 at the time.
Yeah.
Had a little one, had a baby, and another one on the way. At the time, that my boss said he was ready to sell, and I knew the business was probably not at a position where I could move into the new firm that would take on. They could probably absorb the business, so I decided to kind of just offer and say, look, why don't I look at buying?
Right. Now, most financial planners are pretty risk averse, and they need to be, right? That's you're managing people's retirement.
Yeah.
This sounds like a kind of jump off the deep end, high risk maneuver.
Yeah.
At the time, was it like, I'm thrilled and excited, or were you terrified? Or
both, both at the same time. I thought to myself, like, I wanted to be in business. That was kind of the main driver of financial planning, because I saw it as a good business where you could have a lifestyle as well as run a good business. So that was kind of a driver. I always wanted to run my own firm. And I thought to myself, look, I'm 24. If it all blows up in my face and I lose a few $100,000, then I can go work in a corporate job.
Okay.
Pay it off.
You got enough time to kind of come back
Yeah.
at 24.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the risk management questions were still there in your head.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I knew it could have gone bad so very quickly.
Yeah, and your father-in-law helped you out?
Yeah. Fortunately, because I had no money. Me and my wife were earning very little. She was on mat leave, so it was a matter of where do we find the money to be able to buy into this business. Not many people I know have the money or willingness to give it to me. But my father-in-law, fortunately, I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, look,
So
can
he
I borrow
offered
the money?" I asked. He's run his own business before,
Okay.
so he kind of understood the risk, and he said, "Look, if you're willing to ask for the money, and then why not give it a go?"
So has he kind of coached and advised you and been a mentor to you along the process?
A little bit, nothing formal. No,
Yeah.
there's definitely times where I've gone and we've had chats and definitely, just that. Someone to say, yes, here is a whole bunch of money.
It's a big step of belief, isn't
Yeah,
it?
give it a go. Was a huge step of faith for him to kind of realise.
To get backed by a father-in-law who took his daughter and is supposed to not like you very much for doing that.
Yeah. And when I talked about marrying his daughter, he asked plenty of questions at the time, and he wasn't so keen on it.
He's changed his mind.
Yeah.
Those informal chats with people are really wonderful, aren't they? Because we tend to surround ourselves with paid advisors, with accountants and coaches, but having people in your life who, I don't know, over Christmas dinner or one afternoon over a cup of tea or whatnot, just to have those chats. It's really wonderful to have just friendly voices in business.
And people who've experienced it before is always super helpful.
Yeah. So tell me about your growth journey. You've kicked off. You've taken the plunge.
Yeah, so it was pretty slow going at the very beginning. I took over an existing client base.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years was just about securing that. I spent a whole bunch of money to buy a client base. Now I want to make sure they feel comfortable. They want to stay with the business. So that was really a focus for too long, probably. I spent too long worrying about it and, giving them the best service possible, and less focused on growth. And so it probably took us quite a number of years to start growing, and we slowly grew. And then kind of things really started to take off a bit more recently.
So for those who don't know, when you buy a financial planning practice, you're actually buying you're buying a book, a list of clients. And they don't know you, they know the previous owner. And based on history, they may have been ignored by the previous owner. You don't know what the history is like. That might have been a once-a-year email, or they might just have been taken in the bad old days just taken a fee off the superannuation, and that could have been it. But what you've done is you've gone and spent time getting to know these people.
It was a bit better than that. It was quite fortunate. I was working in the business, so I knew the clients.
Okay.
They all knew me. So that's why I say I probably spent too much time, because there actually wasn't that risk, because they all knew me. They felt comfortable.
Right.
It was the previous advisor had left, and I'd be looking after them now.
Okay.
So there wasn't that much of a risk, really, when you think about it. And so that's why I probably invested too much time in that space and not focusing on growing the business.
Okay. So at the start of 2019, you felt like things needed to change. In fact, you used the word stuck. You felt stuck. Describe that to me, because I think a lot of listeners feel stuck at certain points in their business journey.
Yeah.
What did stuck mean for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it was probably 3 years in a row where I sat down with my wife and said, look, if things don't get better by the end of this year, then I need to do something else, because it's working too hard, not making enough money, and it's all too difficult. So if it doesn't improve, then I'm going to, get rid of the business and go do something else. It improved very, very little. And then the next year I'd say, okay, if it doesn't improve again. So I spent 3 years of that conversation with my wife. And then, a bit of stupidity kept on going. And then, end of 2019, it was, we've got to make some changes. So
You'd reached the end of your rope.
Yeah, I was ready. I was kind of, I would say midlife crisis, but it was something needed to change. And so for me, it was, the business was at a sustainable level. We weren't, shooting at the lights. But for me, it was just more of a, hey, let's do something different. One of the major drivers of starting the business was the fact that I don't need to be sitting in front of clients to be able to serve them. So I don't need to be in a meeting room every single week. We can do it remotely, predominantly. Yeah. It's just, how do we do that? And so that was a driver. I spoke to Kate and said, one of the things I really wanted is to be able to spend 3 months overseas every single year. And we did holidays, but there was never a plan to actually formalise that and do it. So it was a discussion of, how do we do it? Can we do it? Do we want to do it? And how do we actually go about doing it? Because something needed to change for us.
Right, so there's a bigger lifestyle goal behind the driver. And on the other side, there was just the inertia of, hey, it's improving a bit, it's going all right. And then you're like, 3 years, it's now staying is more painful than change, so to speak. And you change your business direction.
Yeah.
And started niching. Tell me about that process.
Yeah, so in financial planning world, there's a whole bunch of changes, legislative changes that's been happening for, 10 years or so. Yeah. It's continual change and things going on. And so I recognised that it was just too hard being a solo advisor practice to be able to be all things to everyone. Too much risk, compliance risk. If I say the wrong thing because I'm not totally on top of everything that's going on, it was too risky for my business. So I decided to start, simplifying who we worked with and the type of advice we gave. So previously we would kind of work with anyone. If they're a retiree, we'd work with them. If they're, young clients, we would work with them and any scope of advice. So investment, super, insurance, whatever they needed, we would be able to offer that. And so I decided that to simplify, we needed just to focus on one area of advice and focus on, the type of people we work with moving forward. And so that decision was insurance.
So life insurance?
Yeah, life insurance and income insurance.
Okay. So you've kind of decluttered the business, so to speak. No pun intended, Kirsty, if she's listening. Now, when you start a business, you kind of have to take every piece of work that comes your way. And it's not a bad strategy. It's a good strategy for starting. But there does come a time where it's like, I can't be all things to all men anymore. It's too painful because the business reaches the size and then niching becomes logical. Yeah. But it actually becomes really powerful because we talk about the potato soup, how there's 20,000 financial planners and they all look the same, they all sound the same. There's just this beigeness to an industry. But as soon as somebody says, I'm going to do something specific, all of a sudden, like a piece of red chili in that potato soup, they look different, they poke out. So you've done that on who you wanted to talk to, so that's millennials.
Yep.
And what you're going to do, life insurance and
Yeah.
income protection. All right, so what happened with the business once you've made that call?
Yeah, so I mean, it was scary. I'd never really turned people away before, and so I've referred out more clients than I ever got referred to.
I was going to ask, how did you turn them away? Because saying, no, I don't do business with your type, it's pretty awful.
No.
You just created referral partners and sent them elsewhere.
Yeah. That was a big driver, because that's kind of the big fear. You know, when you stop providing a service, well, you can't just say, well, I was doing this last week but no longer doing it anymore. So we built out really good referral partners where it's, look, this isn't what we do. We're not experts at it, but I can refer you to 3 people who are great at it.
Okay. And the people you're referring to don't necessarily specialise in what you're doing?
That's right. Well, they don't specialise in it. They still provide advice in the areas that we do. So they still provide that advice.
Do they refer back?
Not heaps. We've got some referral partners that refer in. So some other financial advisors who don't want to do insurance,
right,
and they refer to us because they see the power in, you know, doing what they do really well and referring to us.
So they've niched in another direction to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so life insurance is a bit of a sticky place because a lot of financial planners are getting out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are they leaving?
Legislative changes. So we get remunerated via commissions from the insurance company, and that got halved over the last 3 years. It's gone down significantly. So it's much harder to provide the advice. We get paid much less. So that's why plenty of advisors are moving out of that space. But that was kind of a big driving force for me to say, well, if it is harder to do, most people are really archaic in the way they provide the advice. If we can just build out really good processes and just be super focused on this one area, then we can still make it profitable and partner with those people who are leaving that space.
Okay, so you're talking about economies of scale, you've got systems, it all rolls through pretty quickly, so your margins come back, even though you've lost half of them. So then because you've defined what you do and who you're talking to, you're able to market very specifically.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden marketing becomes clear. What is it that you do for marketing to grow your business?
Well, for us, it's more building out alliance partners. So referral partners who bring in leads, who talk to the people that we want to talk to, and they can articulate exactly what we do. And that's been really powerful. In the past, like, I'm a financial planner. Well, what do you do? Well, I do a whole bunch of things. Like, it's very difficult.
Have you got half an hour? I'll tell you all about it.
It's very difficult for people to refer into a financial planner when we do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
But as soon as there's a need for life insurance or income insurance, well, then we're a perfect fit for that client. And so it's just been really easy for our alliance partners to be able to refer to us. And that's why we've seen huge uptake in our referrals coming into the business, because we've been very specific in exactly the clients we want to talk to.
Are you receiving SEO emails all during the week from random people offering to do some service that you don't really understand? Well, you'll never guess, we get them as well, and we do SEO. There's a myth out there that essentially you can trick Google into making your website on the first page and that it'll get you loads of business and it'll be fantastic forevermore. Unfortunately, that idea is nonsense. The truth about SEO is that when somebody types in your keyword and they're looking for your product or service, that you need to provide the very best information to that person. This is where we talk about putting people first. Your website needs to be fantastic. It needs to talk to that person, solve their problem, and be super helpful. This is just one of the ideas we talk about in our digital marketing playbook, where we come across and look at a holistic digital marketing plan for you. If you need help with SEO or your overall digital marketing planning, we'd love to hear from you. You can book a quick chat at theonlineco.net. So tell us about COVID.
Yeah, COVID was interesting for us. So we did have clients who were losing their jobs, and that impacted us a small amount while we're getting them income insurance. As their income drops, they can't get insurance. So that has an impact on a very few select client base. But for us, we were kind of positioned really well. We were already all online.
Yeah.
So 2019, I'd focus really hard on building our processes online. So COVID hit. While every other financial planner is trying to learn how to use Zoom, well, we were already doing that for
You've
every
been doing
client
it for a
meeting.
while, yeah.
So we never saw clients face to face like at the later half of 2019. So we were already. There was actually no impact on our business from COVID.
Well, was it the opposite?
Well, yeah, potentially. We were already growing at a pretty rapid rate, and we kept growing through COVID. So it's hard. I'd love to, a sliding doors moment to see, okay, if COVID didn't happen, would we have still grown as much, or would we have grown it more? But I think, during COVID, everyone's freaking out about, well, if I don't have an income, what am I going to do? Like it's much more relevant to people,
Okay.
And so therefore, having insurance on that income becomes so much more important. And so, it's hard to know whether the pandemic actually created more people interested in getting income insurance, or if it impacted us negatively.
But in 2020, you saw some pretty substantial growth.
Yeah, we grew 260% in 2020.
Okay, so, that's everybody's dream.
Mm.
Hey, I want to triple my business in a year. But when it happens, it's like, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
This isn't quite as fun as I thought, because it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that. I always say in business there's problems, right? There's either good problems or bad problems. You've got a good problem.
Yeah.
It's the right problem, but it's still a problem.
Yeah, I've been in a place where we didn't earn enough money, and,
Right.
and that's stressful.
That's worse,
Now
definitely.
now our problem is how do we not blow up as we grow?
Yeah.
And so there's heaps of problems hiring and working out. When we hire, now I think about, instead of like, oh, what do I need in a year's time? It's, well, what do I need in the next 3 months? Because that may be another two staff.
Yeah.
So we were in the October-December quarter of 2020, I hired 4 new staff, and we were busier than we've ever been, and I'm doing 1 million interviews. So it's it's very stressful, growing quickly.
Yes, it's stressful. That's the truth. Yeah.
And again, it's like there's many more issues and many more problems than having too many leads, but it is a difficult time growing that quick.
Yeah. So we talk about the best way to grow a small or medium business is to put people first. One of the people is your staff. The other one's your customer, and the other one here is your referral partners.
Yep.
So I'd like to ask you about the referral partners and your staff. How is it that you've gone about finding the right people, and has that gone south at times?
We've been really fortunate. The referral partner, our main referral partner, has been growing really well in their business, and so to be quite honest, we've been growing off the coattails of them.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that alliance partner, all I think about is how do we give them what they need, and what is it that they need, and so our partner, they just want to know that the clients are going to be looked after.
Yeah.
Number one, that's really important. And to make sure that, we're doing a good job. And a part of that is just contacting the client within 4 hours of an introduction.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's I've been laser focused in making sure that we are doing that.
Yeah.
If a introduction comes in, then I'm getting onto it straight away. There's no, I'll deal with that tomorrow or nothing like that.
So if you've referred someone, you've almost put your name on the line to say, this person's going to look after you. So if they don't, it's like a bit of a stain on you. So it's really important that you look after them. How did you find your referral partners in the first place?
Just friends, people that I've connected with over time. And so I've been pretty active in financial planning industry and in the space for a while, being on groups within the association, going to conferences, and so I've really invested in meeting people and whether they're going to be a good fit for my business as a hire, whether they're going to be a good referral partner in the future. I've just, over the last 10 years I've been in business, it's been about how do I just build relationships, not for any selfish purpose, but just meeting people, building these relationships.
Well, you're giving and receiving, aren't you?
Exactly.
It's both, yeah. So tell us about your best or worst hiring decision.
Yeah, so when we were hiring quickly, the worst hiring decision was just hiring quickly and not really thinking about who it was.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty bad experience with one hire, and the reason we did is because it was a partner of another staff, and it was just, I need someone 3 weeks ago come into my business and start working. So that, I had to let them go 12 months later, and it was a good 6 months of trying to coach them and improve their performance, and it just took a long time. So, hiring too quick and also firing slowly.
Yeah, well, we make both those mistakes, don't we? Because you're in a rush, you've got a problem, you need to solve it.
Yeah.
And so you roll the dice. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, taking your time when you're hiring is so important. And when you're letting them go, like, there's due process, right? This person might come good, they might not. You don't know. But you reach a point where you're like, I'm pretty sure this is not salvageable.
Yeah.
Is that what happened? And then it took another 6 months?
It took 6 months to try and coach them and improve the performance.
Yeah.
And I, having conversations with my wife every second night about, things I can be doing better, and, because I take a lot of responsibility on myself.
Absolutely.
Like, it's my business.
Business owners do, yeah. It's your name.
If they're underperforming, it's either a process issue in the business, either a training issue, or it's a them issue. And I want to make sure I'm ticking off the process or myself and training. And if it's neither of those two, then it's them. But it takes a long time to realise if it's our fault or not. So that's why it was definitely too long to replace them. But yeah, it's taught me a lot. Make sure my processes are good, make sure my training's really good. So then I can very quickly identify where the issues are and where they're not.
I sometimes wonder if you need one really bad hiring process to teach you what not to do.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Tell me about your personal growth as a leader, because going from just doing it yourself to then hiring people, you actually, your role changes and you as a person change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I think about. I mean, the two things I focus on at the moment is how do we get as good as possible processes. Like I want to make our business McDonald's. Everything has a very distinct process.
Yep.
The client's experience is the same every time. Now, the outcome's always different. It's always personalised. The amount of cover and the right insurance company, it depends on the individual client. But we want to make sure their experience all the way through is the same for everyone, and everyone understands their role within the business. So processes is super important in my business, but the people is like the most important thing. And so, like, growing as a leader is something I'm always thinking about. Like, how do I be as good a leader as possible? And I just ask for feedback. Like, I catch up with every staff member once a month, and a part of that is predominantly just give them feedback, let them know what they're doing well, what can they improve, but also what do they think can be done better? Like, how can I be a better leader? Like, trying to be as honest with them and transparent with them about what I think they can be better at. And also asking them for honest feedback. Like, I'm making this stuff up. I've got no idea what I'm doing. So tell me as much as you can about how I can
I'm sure
be better.
they appreciate your transparency on that as well. So do you have external voices? Do you have a coach, or are you reading books, listening to podcasts, doing other things like that?
Yeah, I'm a big podcast listener.
Yep.
And I've got that network that I've built out over time with trusted partners. I lean on them a lot. I call up, a trusted partner, once a week probably, just to have a chat, see how they're doing things, see how, what are their issues, get feedback on my issues as well. Yeah, I'm pretty relentless in asking people, and I'm pretty blunt. I'll ask for help, and I'm not. I don't really care if I look like an idiot asking for help. I'll just ask for it, and they can always say no.
Yeah, good advice. When you look over the history of your business, is there a mistake you look back on and go, yeah, that was a big one, and I learned a lot from that?
Yeah. So plenty. How much time do we have?
As much as we need.
So one of the big ones was at the start when I took over the business, that relationship soured when I took over the previous owner's business, and that was just he was a mentor at the same time. I'd worked in his business and learnt about it, and that relationship soured. So it was kind of a really good learning curve of just going, okay, if someone says something's in your best interest, just check it. just make sure it is in your best interest. Ask for other feedback from other people.
Yeah.
And I really just taught me that I can kind of, like, as much as a situation can be really stressful, as long as every time I send an email or pick up the phone, I need to be level-headed in my response all the time.
Yeah, we talk about step away from the keyboard. Don't send it.
Yeah.
Send it in half an hour.
Yeah. And so I've really learned that, through bad client experiences, bad, referral partners, like all of that. It's a matter of going, I don't ever win if I'm just spewing frustration out there. So just take a minute, be professional in my responses, and be firm. Like that was the other thing, is needing to be firm in my response, but always be professional in that manner. That was kind of my big taking from that experience.
Yeah. And your goal of travelling hasn't gone away, but it's been paused thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
Where is it you want to go?
Yeah, so the first trip was meant to be now. We were meant to be in Bali for 6 months.
So Bali or Melbourne in winter? What do you reckon?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously COVID's completely thrown that out. But we were tracking to be term 2 and 3 of 2021 was meant to be in Bali. But that's obviously on hold, maybe a year or two.
So you kind of want to do the digital nomad thing?
I'd love to. Yeah. The reason we chose Bali is because it's time zone's good.
Yeah.
Culture, we can kind of lean into Aussie culture as much as we want, depending on our girls, because we've got 3 daughters. So we want to be obviously cognizant of how they're feeling throughout that whole experience. But also the ability to realise that we are extremely well off in Australia, and we're so fortunate to be, be born in this postcode. And so being able to kind of teach our girls that hey, we are extremely fortunate and blessed where we are.
So we might be looking at 2023 now, I guess.
It depends on how COVID goes and what's going on. And maybe it's another country first. Bali was number 1 because it was kind of the easiest, but we'd love to do like South America or Europe or something like that for 3-6 months. But it really depends on how the family go while we're over there.
Sounds like a great dream. Well, I certainly hope the pandemic gives you the opportunity.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on the podcast and all your experience and wisdom. It's been wonderful having you.
I really appreciate it. Thanks,
Cheers.
mate.
That was Phil Thompson, and you can find out more about Skye Wealth at skye.com.au, spelt SKYE. So, Jess, Phil really talked about a couple of things. One was niching, and the other one was about relationships. So maybe you can unpack a little bit about how you can build relationships using social media.
Yeah, that's a common question I actually get is, how do I build a relationship with people on social media? And I think particularly in the B2B space, LinkedIn is definitely the way to go to build relationships with people.
Yep.
So, having a LinkedIn profile, posting regular content is great, but you can take it further on LinkedIn. You can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator if you want. And what you can start doing is start building lists of particular industries or particular job titles and people who you'd really like to connect with. You connect with them and then start contacting them. Send them a message, offer them some value, and try and start building the relationship that way. LinkedIn is completely underutilized, in my opinion, by many businesses. There are a lot of opportunities. I mean, we've got clients who have got some really fantastic results with using LinkedIn and in industries that you wouldn't expect. Some of our trades clients have done so well. So I think when we're talking about building relationships on social media, we have to also remember that it's kind of like SEO in that it's a long game. We often talk about you don't want to propose marriage on the first date. It's a bit weird and not what you want to hear.
That's right.
So take that sort of thought process into your approach with LinkedIn. Start connecting with people and just be genuine.
Yep.
Ask them a bit about what they do. I mean, you can see what their job title is. You can see where they work. Ask them some questions, what they're working on, and you just be genuine and explain to them why you want to connect with them. Why do you want to build that relationship? If you imagine LinkedIn as sort of like the digital networking event, you ask those sort of questions. Hey, so what do you do? Tell me how I can help you. Those type of things. That's
reciprocal too. How can I help you?
That's right.
How can you help me?
Yeah, exactly. But you mentioned one other thing that Phil spoke about, and that was niching. So I'd like to get your thoughts on the importance of niching, because I think this is something that, I've certainly experienced you speak about a lot with our clients. I'd like to get your insights on that.
So I think what happens when somebody starts a business is that they'll basically take money from anyone that will pay them to do anything.
Yes, yeah.
And so, I mean, Phil's in financial services, so there's such a broad range of things that he could offer.
Yeah.
And it's not that different to potentially being in trades or in digital marketing or in all sorts of different places. You can just offer a whole stack of various things. And the problem is that you really look beige to people. And at the start, it's kind of the right thing to do. Like, you do need to start getting some revenue and you need to find your niche, and that can take some time. But then you'll reach a point where you really want to become an expert at something. You want to choose that one thing that possibly you love the most, that you're really good at and that people really need, if you can align those three things. Then what happens is that you start to sort of stick out, so to speak, in the industry. When everybody else is doing everything, they all look beige, then all of a sudden you're bright red. You're something that's really obvious. So you start to build authority, and then people start to refer to you because you're the expert in Phil's case, life insurance. And then your marketing becomes more efficient. So if you're going to do SEO, and your industry covers 4,000 keywords, well, you might niche that down to 400 keywords. All of a sudden, you can dominate 400 much cheaper than 4,000, much more effectively. Same with social media, same with Google Ads. You can target precisely the right people with the right message about the right thing, and your marketing becomes clearer as well.
It does. It really helps your marketing, doesn't it?
It takes some courage, because essentially you've got to start saying no to a whole bunch of things. You've got to start saying no to the revenue that you're used to saying yes to, in the knowledge that you're going to get more of the right things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to grow faster.
You will.
And it'll be more profitable. You'll be more efficient. It has benefits across the whole business. So coming up next week, you'll meet a woman who was at the forefront of reshaping the beauty industry in Australia in the early 2000s, when the first day spas and health retreats began to emerge. She is Vanessa Main, and she now runs a consultancy called Loft Inc., educating business owners in the beauty and wellness industry. Her business insights are invaluable. This episode of Getting to the Heart of Business was brought to you by The Online Co, produced by Claire Bruce, music by Harry Parnwell. You can find us at theonlineco.net. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with someone. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and come and join us on our Facebook group called Getting to the Heart of Business Community.